Flight 269 is currently contending with adverse weather conditions as it approaches Phuket International Airport in Thailand. Strong winds are pushing the aircraft off its intended glide path, while the co-pilot struggles to realign the plane with the runway. Unfortunately, the descent rate is too rapid to make the necessary adjustments. To avoid a potential crash, the pilots opt to execute a go-around and prepare for another approach. The landing gear is retracted and the flaps are adjusted for the maneuver. However, just as the aircraft begins to ascend to safety, disaster strikes once more. It is quickly losing both speed and altitude, placing the crew in an even more dangerous predicament. Will the pilots succeed in executing a safe go-around, or is it too late to avert catastrophe? This narrative centers on 12-GO Flight 269. On the afternoon of September 16, 2007, 123 passengers board the 12-GO Airlines flight at Don Mueang International Airport in Bangkok. Scheduled to depart at 2:30 p.m. local time. This flight is intended to be a routine journey transporting tourists from Bangkok to Phuket, one of Thailand's most sought-after destinations. However, several factors render this flight anything but typical. 12-GO Airlines, a low-cost carrier operated by Orient Thai Airlines, primarily caters to budget-conscious travelers, offering affordable flights throughout the region. Nevertheless, these low fares often came with significant scrutiny regarding safety and operational standards. Safety practices, training standards, and operational procedures are critical components of aviation operations. On the day in question, the aircraft in use was a McDonnell Douglas MD-82, which had been operational since 1983. Under typical circumstances, this would not pose a problem, as the MD-82 is recognized for its robustness and dependability. By 2007, it was a reliable workhorse for numerous airlines globally. The captain of Flight 269 was both experienced and dependable. A 57-year-old Indonesian national, he boasted over 16,000 flight hours, including more than 4,300 hours specifically on the MD-82. In contrast, the co-pilot, a 30-year-old Thai national, had only 1,465 total flight hours, nearly all of which were on the MD-82. For this flight, the co-pilot was designated as the pilot flying, while the captain served as the pilot monitoring. It is not uncommon in aviation to have such a disparity in experience between two pilots. However, a more pressing concern in this instance was the insufficient rest the pilots had prior to the flight. In the week leading up to September 16, both the captain and co-pilot had surpassed their flight time and duty limits without adequate rest. The co-pilot had exceeded his duty limits in both the preceding 30 days and the week before the flight. This overexertion, coupled with a lack of rest, likely contributed to the challenging conditions encountered during the flight. As passengers and crew prepared for takeoff from Bangkok, their destination, Phuket, was experiencing severe storms. Heavy rainfall, strong winds, and low visibility complicated the flight, prompting the pilots to take on additional fuel in case they were unable to land immediately or needed to divert to an alternate airport. After the flight crew completed their final checks, they ensured the cabin was ready for departure. Once the aircraft secures clearance from air traffic control, it is prepared for pushback. As the plane begins to taxi towards the runway, passengers catch fleeting glimpses of the airport terminals and other aircraft, unaware that their brief journey will soon encounter considerable obstacles. Before we proceed with the narrative of Flight 269, we would like to share a message from our partner. Today's video is sponsored by BetterHelp, the largest online therapy service in the world, established in 2013. BetterHelp aims to simplify the process of starting therapy. This platform facilitates effective communication between therapists and clients, ensuring that individuals gain the maximum benefit from their therapeutic experience. With an extensive network of qualified therapists, BetterHelp makes it straightforward to find a professional who meets your specific needs. Whether you prefer phone calls, video sessions, or messaging, BetterHelp provides a convenient and tailored approach to therapy. If you feel that your assigned therapist is not the right fit, you can easily switch to another at no additional cost. Your mental health is as crucial as your physical health, and BetterHelp is committed to making support accessible. With a 4.5-star rating on Trustpilot, you can have confidence in the quality of care you will receive. If you are ready to take the next step towards improved mental well-being, please visit betterhelp.com/aircraft investigation or select aircraft investigation during sign-up to receive a special discount on your first month of therapy. Now, let us return to the video at 2:30 p.m. Flight 269, departing from Don Muang International Airport, is only slightly behind schedule. The initial segment of the journey is uneventful as the aircraft ascends to its cruising altitude, allowing passengers to settle in for a brief flight. The duration is anticipated to be approximately 1 hour and 20 minutes, cruising at 32,000 feet along Airway Gulf 458 before initiating its descent into Phuket. As the flight nears the Phuket region, the flight crew notices on the radar that the already inclement weather is deteriorating rapidly. Heavy rainfall and strong winds escalate, resulting in low visibility conditions that complicate the approach. At 3:24 p.m., the Phuket approach controller directs the crew to descend to 8,000 feet, proceed directly to a navigational reference point known as ANFIL and prepare for the Instrument Landing System (ILS) approach to runway 27. Phuket International Airport is equipped with an ILSA precise radio navigation system that offers short-range guidance to aircraft during their approach, particularly in adverse weather or low-visibility situations. The ILS operates using two types of radio signals, the localizer and the glide slope. The localizer assists pilots or the autopilot in maintaining alignment with the runway centerline, indicating whether the aircraft is deviating to the left or right and guiding it back on course. The glide slope aids pilots in managing the descent angle, ensuring the aircraft follows the correct trajectory toward the runway by indicating whether it is too high or too low during the approach. The ILS at Phuket features a 1.4-degree offset approach to account for terrain considerations. The system's clearance resulted in the aircraft being guided on a heading that was slightly misaligned with the runway, necessitating that the pilots manually align the aircraft once they visually identify the airport. Additionally, the airport is equipped with a wind shear detection system. However, the overcast weather conditions limited its solar power, preventing it from operating at full capacity. The lack of reliable wind shear alerts compounded the challenges faced by the pilots. As Flight 269 approached the airport, Orient the Airlines Flight 2071 successfully landed at Phuket International Airport. Although the landing was executed safely, it was not without its difficulties. The flight crew promptly informed the controller that they had encountered severe wind shear during their final approach. This communication alerted the crew of Flight 269 to the fact that the weather conditions surrounding the airport were not only poor, but also potentially hazardous for any aircraft, particularly in the absence of a fully operational wind shear detection system. When the controller inquired whether the crew had received this crucial warning, the captain acknowledged their awareness of the conditions but opted to proceed with the approach, a decision that would ultimately lead to tragic consequences. As the flight continued its descent, the weather conditions worsened, presenting the crew with heavy rain, strong crosswinds, and the imminent threat of wind shear. This perilous phenomenon, characterized by abrupt changes in wind speed or direction over short distances, can significantly affect an aircraft's performance and stability during landing. The time was 3:37 p.m. The controller notifies the crew of surface winds coming from 240 at 15 knots. While these winds present challenges, they remain within the aircraft's operational limits. However, just 1 minute later, conditions worsen as the wind speed increases to 30 knots. Despite this change, the crew reaffirms their intention to land. The captain then extends the landing gear and adjusts the flaps to 40 in preparation for landing. As the aircraft descends below 500 feet, the co-pilot disengages the autopilot to compensate for the ILS offset and to realign the aircraft with the runway's centerline. This decision to operate without autopilot heightens the mental demands on the co-pilot, who must vigilantly monitor altitude, airspeed, and glide path angle, all while already experiencing fatigue and stress. Although the co-pilot has disengaged the autopilot, he has not turned off the autothrottle. Disengaging the autothrottle would have granted him complete control over thrust, facilitating precise speed management during landing. With the autothrottle still active, any unexpected thrust adjustments could jeopardize the critical final phase of landing. By 3:39 p. Wind speeds escalate to 40 knots, significantly threatening the aircraft's stability. The co-pilot struggles against the strong winds to align the aircraft with the runway. However, the plane veers off the glide path and descends too rapidly, losing over 1,800 feet per minute. Such a drastic deviation from the glide path indicates that the aircraft is no longer on a stabilized approach, making a safe landing increasingly unlikely. As the aircraft descends at a concerning rate, the co-pilot calls for assistance. A go-around is a maneuver executed when a landing is aborted, requiring the aircraft to ascend away from the runway to prepare for another landing attempt. Upon the captain's agreement, the pilots retract the landing gear and adjust the flaps in preparation for the go-around. In a standard go-around procedure, the flight crew increases engine power to take off/go-around. TOGA thrust retracts the landing gear and ascends to a safe altitude while configuring the aircraft for a subsequent approach. However, at this critical moment, the co-pilot fails to activate the TOGA switch, which is intended to provide maximum thrust during a go-around, thereby ensuring a safe climb. Instead, he manually advances the throttles to increase power, but the autothrottle system remains engaged in a mode designed to reduce engine power during landing. When the co-pilot releases the throttles, the autothrottle system takes over, automatically decreasing thrust and causing the aircraft to lose speed rapidly while attempting to climb. In a state of panic as the aircraft's speed diminishes, the co-pilot transfers control to the captain. This transfer, during such a critical phase, undoubtedly contributed to the confusion within the cockpit. By the time the captain assumed control, it was already too late. Neither the captain nor the co-pilot realized that the autothrottle was responsible for the reduction in power, which continued to hinder the aircraft's speed. The altitude peaks at approximately 300 feet before the aircraft begins to descend rapidly. The ground proximity warning system activates, indicating an unrecoverable situation. Moments later, the aircraft crashes into an embankment located north of runway 27, shortly after the attempted landing. The impact of the crash was catastrophic, resulting in the aircraft disintegrating into 3 sections and igniting in flames. Out of the 130 individuals on board, 90 lost their lives immediately, while 40 others sustained various degrees of injuries. The adverse weather conditions and difficult terrain continued to pose significant obstacles, hindering both rescue and firefighting operations. A 4-foot ditch running parallel to runway 27 obstructed easy access for vehicles to the crash site. Although the ditch could be crossed at either end of the runway, no rescue vehicles attempted to do so, which considerably delayed their response times. Initially, only 1 ambulance was dispatched, and additional fire and rescue teams from Fuke did not arrive until 30 minutes later. In the aftermath of the tragic incident involving Flight 269, the Aircraft Accident Investigation Committee of Thailand conducted an inquiry into the events of September 16, 2007. The investigation determined that a combination of human error, insufficient training, and poor decision-making were the main contributors to the crash. It was also revealed that the failure to properly execute the go-around procedure and the co-pilot's neglect in activating the TOGA switch were critical mistakes that played a significant role in the disaster. Furthermore, the investigation report underscored serious deficiencies in crew resource management, noting a breakdown in communication and decision-making between the captain and co-pilot during the crucial moments preceding the crash. Standard operating procedures for a stabilized approach, appropriate callouts, and the management of emergency situations are detailed in the airline's Flight Operations Manual. The findings of the report extended beyond the actions of the crew involved in the Flight 269 crash. It also identified systemic problems within 12 Go Airlines and its parent company, Orient the Airlines. The investigation revealed shortcomings in the training and oversight of flight crews, particularly in relation to fatigue management and compliance with standard operating procedures. Notably, both the captain and co-pilot had surpassed the permitted flight duty time, which likely impaired their performance during the flight. Consequently, the European Union imposed a blacklist on 12 Go Airlines due to safety concerns. Ultimately, both the airline and Orient the Airlines ceased operations in 2018, partly due to persistent regulatory challenges and financial difficulties.